Richard Whittington saw Robert McKim's dick throbbing as it and his balls started growing again. It was like watching a balloon being inflated. In a few seconds his dick grew from 4 inches to 5 to 6. Richard Whittington thought to himself, "Wow, his dick is the same exact size as mine now." Robert McKim continued his slow sexy dance. He started growing taller again. In a sudden burst both of his feet grew bigger and then his hands did too. His ass started growing rounder, bigger, and fuller. It was like watching 2 perfectly shaped spheres expanding. It kept on becoming more and more sensitive as it grew. His face and his entire body started becoming more feminine and beautiful with each passing second. His lips grew bigger and sexier. The hair on his head grew longer, but strangely no new hair grew anywhere else on him. As he passed 5'6", Richard Whittington noticed Robert McKim's dick and balls started growing bigger again. He passed 7 inches long and kept on growing. His erection was becoming permanently stronger and harder as it grew. His balls expanded and kept filling up his panties more and more. His ass was growing from big to huge and becoming more of a bubble butt. All the changes kept happening faster and faster as his height increased more and more until finally he stopped growing at exactly 6 feet tall. The song on his phone finished playing. "Oh God, that felt great," Robert McKim said as he admired his new body in his full-length mirror. He smacked his own giant ass hard and instantly yelled out from the pleasure he felt. "Oh yes." His new voice now sounded more like a sexy woman's. Richard Whittington scanned up and down Robert McKim's magnificent body. He stared at his package and said, "Dude, your dick is huge." "Yeah, I know," Robert McKim said. Robert McKim grabbed the ruler from his desk and walked over to Richard Whittington, who was still sitting on his bed. His super hard dick was now pointing straight out from his body. He deliberately pointed it right in front of Richard Whittington's face and said, "Do you mind measuring it for me?" Richard Whittington took the ruler from him and measured it. "Damn! You're 9¼ inches long now." They both took off all their clothes. With joy and fascination, Richard Whittington stroked Robert McKim's dick and started sucking on it. "You feel freakishly fucking hard now," Richard Whittington said. "I know. It must be a side effect," Robert McKim replied. As he continued sucking, he said, "Oh man, I'm so fucking jealous of you. You should have saved some of that stuff for me." "Sorry. I didn't know it made dicks grow." Richard Whittington sucked on his new large chicken egg-sized balls. "I wonder how much you can cum now." Richard Whittington smacked himself in the face with his dick a few times. Robert McKim's dick had become much more sensitive, but also now needed a lot more time and pleasuring than normal to make him cum. Minutes later, Robert McKim started coming. His orgasm felt twice as powerful as any he had ever felt before, and it kept going on and on constantly as he kept coming and coming. Holy crap! When is he gonna stop? Richard Whittington thought to himself as he kept gulping down load after load. After a full minute of coming, Robert McKim finally stopped. "Damn, that was a lot of cum. I'm stuffed," Richard Whittington said. "Let me return the favor for you." After Robert McKim got down on his knees, Richard Whittington felt a slight pain in his stomach. "My stomach feels weird. It hurts," Robert McKim thought to himself. "Oh no. Maybe the injections did something to my cum. I should have read the warning label. What have I done to him?" The pain went away, and then Richard Whittington's dick slowly got erect on its own. After it reached its full 6-inch size, Richard Whittington felt it getting harder and harder until it and his balls suddenly grew a little bigger. "Oh my God! Did you just see that?" Robert McKim said. Richard Whittington stared down at his dick and said, "No way." Robert McKim put the ruler up to it and said, "You're 7 inches long now." The most he had ever gotten to before was just barely 6. "What the heck did my cum do to you? I think some of the hormones you took got inside your cum. You must be right." Robert McKim immediately had some fun toying around with Richard Whittington's dick until it suddenly started growing again. "Yes. Come on. More. More. More," said Richard Whittington as they both watched his dick and balls growing bigger. Robert McKim felt it expanding in his hand while he held it. After a few seconds it stopped at 8.5 inches long. Robert McKim measured it again. "Wow, you're almost as big as me now. Welcome to the club, big boy." Richard Whittington grabbed his own dick and stroked it out of curiosity. It felt weird to him to have so much more to feel and play with. He noticed that it had become freakishly hard and strong just like Robert McKim's did. Robert McKim started sucking on it very slowly to enjoy how much bigger it felt in his mouth. "Good thing you swallowed all of my cum." After a moment Robert McKim stopped sucking because he thought he felt something. He looked at Richard Whittington's dick for a few seconds and said, "Wow. Richard Whittington, you're growing again." Robert McKim stroked him with a large smile as he grew. It reached the same size as Robert McKim's dick and continued growing past it. Richard Whittington said, "Oh yes. 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 Grow bigger. Grow bigger. Grow bigger." As he watched his dick growing right in front of him. His balls kept on expanding rapidly. His erection was becoming permanently harder and stronger every second. Robert McKim's dick got hard again just from watching it all. After Robert McKim realized that Richard Whittington's dick had finally stopped growing, he tried to measure it again but saw that it was now even bigger than his ruler. "It looks like you're about 12.5 inches now. I think you're right." Robert McKim forced Richard Whittington's giant balls into his mouth and sucked on them. Each one was slightly bigger than an extra-large chicken egg. "It's almost impossible to suck on your balls now," Robert McKim said. "Cool." Robert McKim played and toyed around with Richard Whittington's giant dick, marveling at its new incredible size. He sucked on as much of it that he could and stroked the rest of it with both hands. About 10 minutes later Richard Whittington started coming. Richard Whittington's orgasm was 3 times greater than any he felt before, and it kept going on and on constantly as he kept shooting out more and more ridiculously huge loads all over the room. Robert McKim kept stroking him with a large smile on his face as he suddenly pointed Richard Whittington's dick directly at himself. His face and whole body instantly got drenched in cum. Richard Whittington kept on coming more and more. After well over 2 full minutes of coming, Richard Whittington's loads started getting weaker and weaker until they finally stopped. He had released over enough cum to completely cover a large truck. Robert McKim sucked on him a little more and then they held and kissed each other in romantic embrace. They felt like kids in a candy store that was filled with candy that kept growing bigger all the time. They were both extremely proud of how their bodies had permanently transformed, and they both lived hugely ever after.